This is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous, good-looking friends. I hope those that celebrated Thanksgiving yesterday had a lovely one. But today we're back, and yesterday, Richard Eden wrote this article in the Daily Mail. Now, I took some time to read it, and I walked away feeling incredibly pissed off. So let's take some time to just go through the highlights of what Richard Eden is saying and try to decipher whether or not this is more fake news, dangling a carrot, gaslighting, or what have you. Keep in mind that I've been saying for weeks now, especially going through what we're seeing in the tabloid media, that there is some sort of path being carved for Harry to find his way back home, just in time to get out of the United States before Donald Trump gets sworn in. So Richard Eden kicks off his article by talking about Harry and Meghan's Polo series that's coming out, and then contrasts it with a world away. The Duchess of Edinburgh had an announcement of her own that she had become the royal patron of Plan International UK, a global children's charity of which the late Prince Philip was formerly patron. Separately, Sophie later met survivors of the City genocide in Iraq at their photography exhibition, The Women Who Beat ISIS in London. There's no denying that Harry and Meghan have done admirable work for charity, particularly through the Archewell Fugazi Public Charity. Richard Eden then goes into saying, it's notable that Harry does not seem to feature much in the Polo series himself, even though he is a keen player. In the trailer, only his name appears in a production credit alongside that of his wife. After King Charles's cancer treatment was announced in February, Harry let it be known via friends that he was willing to take on a temporary royal role in support of his father. His offer was never taken up, but the California-based prince is understood to be keen to spend more time in his homeland. Meghan's lifestyle business, American Riviera Orchard, is yet to sell a single product almost 9 months after it was launched online amid great fanfare. The couple's deal with audio giant Spotify was ended unceremoniously, and their contract with Netflix comes up for renewal next year. So their thoughts may well be turning to how to return to royal rules and the funding that goes with it. How convenient that all of the projects and contracts that Meghan and Harry had just so happens to be over before the beginning of 2025. And how interesting, out of all the royals, Sophie and Edward now become the topic of this article. And that's where Edward and Sophie come in. Although most people have long forgotten Queen Elizabeth's youngest son and his wife were caught up in controversies of their own after they tried to combine business with royal duties. Edward was forced to close his TV production company Ardent in 2002 after it was caught filming Prince William at St. Andrews University, breaching agreements with the media to leave the future king alone while he was a student. The former Sophie Rice-Jones, meanwhile, was encouraged by an undercover News of the World reporter posing as a wealthy Arab businessman to make embarrassing comments about the royals and the then Prime Minister Tony Blair and his wife Sherry. You see, I don't like what Richard Eden is doing here. Essentially, he is diminishing the seriousness of the past 4 years and what Harry and Meghan have been doing here in the United States. Not only did this couple go on television and lie their face off, but they essentially accused not only the royal family of being racist, but also all of the UK for being racist. In addition, let's not forget the cyber terrorism that these two have been funding and supporting. You're going to equate that to Sophie and Edward, where Sophie made an honest mistake and then Edward, oh yeah, he shouldn't have done it, but it was his nephew. Did he cause any harm? No, he didn't. Did he continue to keep filming William? Did Sophie continue to keep talking bad about Tony Blair, the Prime Minister? No, they didn't. Here you have a couple who have literally destroyed not only race relations in the United States, but also race relations in the UK. They've caused so much divide. They've hurt so many people. And now you're going to say that Sophie and Edward, if they can do it, then so can the Duke and Duchess of Sussex? Get the F out of here with this shit. Many thought Sophie and Edward would never recover from the fake chic scandal in 2001. I'm going to have to disagree with Richard on this one because in 2001, nobody was talking about Sophie and Edward here in the United States, especially after 9/11. In all seriousness, and maybe because I'm an American, but this is the first time I'm hearing that Sophie had a scandal that happened in 2001. Anyway, getting back to Sophie and Edward. Yet the couple decided to abandon their paid work and concentrate on royal duties. In return, the late Queen Elizabeth stuck by them, and they have gone on to become much loved and respected stalwarts of the firm over the past 20 years. True, they will never be paid millions by foreign firms, but they live a privileged and rewarding life. If the Duke and Duchess of Sussex are prepared to give up their private work and return to royal life, they would be welcome back, one courtier tells me. Certainly, as long as King Charles is monarch. Therein lies a warning to the Sussexes. Prince William is unlikely to be as forgiving as his father. And, given Harry and Meghan's disgraceful attacks on the Princess of Wales in particular, I can fully understand why. I don't know if Richard Eden got paid to write this article, but if the intention was to gaslight the public, then he definitely succeeded. Because, after all that we have witnessed and the things that people have been saying, especially the former staff, around the abuse and bullying by Harry and Meghan, which courtier has come forward to say that these two would be welcomed back pretty much with open arms? Then on top of it, assume that Harry and Meghan, especially Meghan, would be okay not being able to earn any type of income, especially knowing that when she was a royal, she had been pocketing money by charging back the firm for clothes that she received for free. It had been rumored that her and Jessica Mulroney had this little side grift going on. Now, do any of us think there's any truth to this? Honestly, I do. And here is why. Now, I know that many of you may not want to hear it, but the institution is complicit in some of this deceit. Do not get this mistaken with the personal feelings and thoughts of the royal family themselves. When we talk about complicit and the institution being a part of it, we're talking about the palace courtiers, we're talking about the press secretaries, we're talking about the secretaries, and whoever else Harry and Meghan, as well as the royal family, have around them. Each and every one of those people have their own agendas and minds, especially when it comes to power dynamics within the royal household. Remember, there's always these advisors that are whispering in Charles's ear or whispering in William's ear. We don't know what's going on behind palace walls, right? What we can talk about is what's being put out in the media, of what's being said, as well as what's not being said. For all those that have been following me now for a while and covering the last couple of months and the PR surrounding Harry and Meghan, you'll notice that recently it does appear that there is a concerted effort to rehabilitate Prince Harry's image back into this so-called royal who has dedicated his life to service. I do believe that there is a strategy and plan to bring this guy back. Harry has stated in the numerous interviews that he has done that he is here on a mission. And that mission is to change the media landscape. That translated to coming over here in 2020 to undermine the U.S. government in the attempts to tear down the First Amendment. Now, right around the time that Elon Musk had bought Twitter in October of 2022, King Charles goes ahead and hires a constitutional law expert. I'm not saying that it's related. However, it was then shortly after that, Elon Musk then says that he's going to be releasing the Twitter files. Then in December of 2022, the first batch of the Twitter files was released. Matt Taibbi, Michael Schellenberger began exposing how the U.S. government had colluded with social media companies to suppress the Hunter Biden laptop story, holding back information that could have influenced or affected the 2020 election outcome. Now, what many should have noticed by now is that ever since the exposure of the Twitter files up on Capitol Hill in Matt Taibbi's and Michael Schellenberger's testimony, Meghan and Harry, as well as other nefarious characters in this censorship industrial complex, have shifted their focus now onto the children. And as a result of having actual free speech on the platform X, or at least more than any other platform that we have at the moment that's not controlled by the state or the government, what we've been seeing is actual truth coming out as to what these people are really all about. Now remember, King Charles didn't hesitate or question to sign that online safety bill, and thus it went into law very quietly. Now, I do understand that he doesn't make any kind of decisions, nor many of you feel like he doesn't have any power, which I disagree upon. But he very well could have went behind closed doors and had a conversation with the various members of parliament to give his reasoning if he so champions democracy and free speech to do that, but he didn't. And thus he went and signed it. And now look at the shit show that's going on in the UK at the moment. Anyhow, that's not my concern. My concern is the king's son being over here in the United States trying to push the very same policies and regulations that just got passed in the UK. That's the problem that I have. Now, after Harry had released his book Spare and admitted to all his drug use, we then had this lawsuit being raised by the Heritage Foundation to see Harry's visa. And it just so happened that now the Twitter files had exposed, giving us confirmation that Harry and Meghan very much had been aligned with the very same people who were getting sued in the Missouri versus Biden lawsuit that went to the Supreme Court. But how interesting is it that the king brought back the diversity consultant that handled Prince Harry's drug use scandal, Colleen Harris, back in April of 2023. It just so happens that Colleen is a rock star in public relations, communications, and reputation management, but specializes in DEI, equality, and diversity. She has a real knack and talent for engaging those hard-to-reach groups. There's been so much propaganda that the Harkle's PR machine has thrown out there to distract the public from looking in the direction of the actual work that they really have been doing, which is focusing on exploiting these charities and exploiting the youth, as well as trying to shut down free speech. If you notice, from day one, the only thing that they have been consistent with is that type of exploitation and control. Make no mistake, Harry and Meghan have been very much aligned with the Agenda 2030, the same agenda that King Charles has been in support of for decades. When you look at the gong show that they have presented to us, such as Archwell Productions and Archwell Audio, none of it has panned out. But everything else from a charity side, whether it be keeping some of the staff that they had in the UK, working with organizations from the UK, bringing over people from the UK, you cannot tell me that Harry and Meghan have fully disconnected from the institution. Like, let's use a little logic here. You got to think about this. There's rumor going around that Harry and Meghan have gone broke. Well, if they have gone broke, how is it that Harry is paying people to run Travelus? Harry is paying people to run Archwell and all those research reports that they keep generating and pumping out. Somebody has to be funding them. Now, I know it might be hard to fathom, but don't think that King Charles has zero idea as to what his darling boy has been up to here in the United States. Now, this is just my opinion, but the king knows about all the corrupted, shady things that Harry and his bitch wife have been up to here in the United States. Harry and Meghan know that they are in a lot of trouble because this stuff is catching up to them. And what better way than to ease the way back into the UK than to paint this picture of how much they miss the royal life, or at least from Harry's perspective, going back to the only thing he ever knew how to do, which is to so-called be royal and give his life to duty and service. I hope people have noticed how flawless Harry's PR was when he went to New York for the Clinton Global Initiative and spent time with Dr. Tedros. And then you had him go off to London for the Well Child Awards, and then he went to Africa, and then we found him in Vancouver. Oh, and let's not forget Harry's meeting with NATO and promoting Invictus and integrating it with this Forever War organization while they extend their tentacles out into the school system to brainwash and groom kids into understanding what resilience is. So I'm guessing resilience, meaning if you get your arm blown off for fighting in the war, that's okay. You shouldn't be scarred by it. Now, the point that I'm trying to make here is that there has been an obvious concentrated effort to promote Harry as this respected global statesman leader that we should all look up to. And by positioning him at certain events like the Clinton Global Initiative with Bill and Hillary Clinton, as well as putting him at the dinner table with Dr. Tedros of the WHO, and then going to Colombia and doing all that other fake royal stuff, They're positioning and setting the stage for Harry and maybe even Meghan to go back. And, this recent article by Richard Eden mentioning Sophie now raises a flag to me because how often do we hear about Sophie? I was quite surprised when the Archewell Fugazi Public Charity launched their Parents Network. One of the core partners of this program is the NSPCC. As you can see here, building a better online world. Well, do you know who the patron is of the NSPCC? Well, that would be Sophie. What a coincidence. And then just a couple days ago, it was announced that Sophie was going to be the UK patron for Plan International. What an awesome coincidence that Plan International was a core organization that was a part of the UN Global Ministerial Conference 2024 in Colombia. Plan International's commitment or pledge in this summit is focused on legal and policy frameworks addressing online harms. Pretty similar to what the Archewell Fugazi Public Charity Parents Network is all about. When you look back at the things that happened this year with the Harkles, and it just didn't make any kind of sense, like going to Nigeria and Harry getting saluted by the army, and then they're playing God Save the King. Oh, and we can't forget that Harry and Meghan made a pit stop to go visit one of Princess Anne's patronages, Save the Children, and they treated Harry as if it was like a regular royal visit, rolling out the red carpet, giving him his 20-car motorcade and police escorts. Then let's not forget, every time he comes to New York, the last time he had a motorcade, this time he's going to get a motorcade coming up. And then we look at Colombia. Look at all the resources and military that had been dedicated to protecting those two fools. If I didn't know any better, this sure looks like the half in, half out that Harry and Meghan wanted to begin with. So now you can see why Richard Egan's article concerned me. Now you're bringing Sophie and Edward up when the Harkles have been working with two organizations that Sophie is the patron of. To me, I think is a little suspicious. Also, if this is indeed true, and this is how the media works with them seeding these little nuggets to get us accustomed to the idea, then I'm sorry. If this happens and Meghan and Harry end up going back into the fold, I'm done. I am done with the royal family because then you guys will understand just as well as I will of what is up. And we've been all taken for fools. I still believe that we all have been taken for fools over this facade that they keep trying to convince us is real. This whole saga is so incredibly exhausting, and the journalists are partly to blame for this. But before I go, I just want to leave you with this one last impression to show you what a scam these two are. At Tyler Perry's house, or we're supposed to believe that this is Tyler Perry's house, when they fled for refuge in California. Here are supposed to be Harry and Meghan, but when you take a look at this, two things that come out as extremely odd. First off, you have a couple who fled Canada because they wanted their privacy. Meanwhile, they're inside Tyler Perry's home. Who is filming these two from the window? I'm just saying. Then take a look at Meghan. Meghan allegedly had this baby, but look how flat her chest is. And I don't think anybody should be surprised, considering that this mockumentary had been one giant ball of deceit, is that in this clip, that's not Meghan, because Meghan, at least at this point in time, had boobs. This woman who's in this clip doesn't have any boobs. When you look at the strangeness of someone filming them through a window in their personal bedroom, that's not creepy. Completely staged, folks. 100% staged. Anyway, what do you guys think? I think if Harry and Meghan are allowed to go back, that would be the biggest slap in the face to Catherine and William. In fact, I don't think William would be too happy about that. Nothing makes sense of any of this, and it's so frustrating to see how the media have yet to be held accountable for being reckless and irresponsible in the things that they put out into the public space, especially on behalf of Harry and Meghan, two of the biggest liars in the whole entire universe. I mean, if these people were really serious about keeping the online space safe, then instead of putting regulation and rules around our speech, put rules and regulations around banning domestic propaganda, because that's exactly what is causing all this mental health crisis and problems as a result of these very same people who have been weaponizing the media in order to manipulate the masses. And that's the biggest problem out of all of what I see here with this couple and what they came here to do. So, but let me know what you think. As always, I will be back with more content, but until then, please be safe and I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Such a fraud.